Hi, so we're back for our Wednesday's Nature Talk, and today we're actually out in our woods, and we're going to be talking about trees. And the neat thing about trees is there are a lot of things that they do for us. They're habitat for animals, they provide food for animals. We cut trees down for wood and for lumber, for paper products. They provide shade, they produce oxygen for us, so they're really valuable to have. So we're going to look at the bark today because in the Poconos right now, our leaves are not out in the trees. So we're going to focus on looking at the bark of a tree and trying to identify what kind of tree this is. So our first tree here, the bark is really smooth and it's light colored. And how I learned it, it's really smooth like the sands on a beach. So this is a beech tree, B-E-E-C-H, beech tree, and it's very smooth and light colored compared to all the other trees that we have in our forest. So they're easy for me to pick out. And their leaves, we'll show you a picture of it, but it's more the shape of kind of like your hand that's all closed together as you're looking for it. So when you're looking for a beech tree, nice and smooth, easy to notice. Our second tree here, this one's very different, and I was taught this is our frosted flake tree. That's how I learned this tree, because it looks like little flakes that are just pasted together all along the tree. So very different, darker color. This is actually a black cherry tree. All right, the leaves actually look really similar to our beech tree because they're shaped like our hand, but they're a little bit shinier. As you can notice them. So we have our beech, we have our black cherry, and now a different one, our third tree over here. This is a maple tree. All right. Now a maple tree is light colored, but it kind of breaks up. Some people say it looks like poured concrete or poured cement. That one's hard for me to notice, but it is a maple tree. And the maple leaves, their leaves are going to be wide, spread out like your finger, like your hand, and have a lot of lobes to them. So we're going to go to another location and talk about a couple more different trees that you'll find in our woods. Okay, we're at our next location, and here's another unusual tree. And this tree is called a shagbark hickory, and the bark will actually flip out as you're going up the tree. You can see it, and so it was easy for me, like Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. So this is a shagbark hickory, and the interesting thing about this tree is the leaves are compound, which means they have a couple different leaflets attached to one spot. So the compound leaf you'll see a picture of has multiple parts of a leaf. So we have our shagbark hickory. And right next to this, we're going to go back a little bit. This is another tree. Now this one does not flip out, but it actually starts to break into platelets. And the markings around this tree will actually circle the tree. So that's another way it's easy for me to identify. This is a black birch tree. And I just have to look for the markings on the tree, actually go around the tree instead of running up and down the tree instead of going vertically. So this is our black birch tree. And this leaves, you'll see a picture of it on our screen, actually looks similar to the cherry and the beech tree. And all the trees that we've shown you so far do not have leaves. So they're in the family or the category called deciduous trees. So they drop their leaves in the winter time so they don't have to worry about providing food to them. Our last tree which we have today is Pennsylvania state tree, and that is the eastern hemlock tree. So this is the only tree that you'll see that actually has leaves or needles on it, and it is called the eastern hemlock tree, but it's also in the category of coniferous trees or evergreen trees. So today, hopefully you've learned a little bit about some of our trees in the area. And as we think about the trees, we talked about this a little bit before, about how the trees have different parts to it that allow it to grow. So we have the roots, which act as the anchor for the trees. We have the big part of the tree, or the trunk of the tree, which gives support to it. And if you look all the way up high in the tree where the branches shoot out and all the leaves, that's called the canopy. And that's usually where it's growing. It's basically collecting sunlight for it. And then on the outside of all the trees that we looked at today has the bark. And the bark protects the trees. So as you think about all those different components of the trees that allow the trees to survive and to thrive, I like to compare it to our walk with God. What do we need? What anchors our faith? What's like the roots of us? And as I thought about that, it's probably my beliefs. My reading the Bible is going to help anchor my faith. Going to church and hearing the teaching of preachers and teachers. And if we think about the trunk of the tree, the support that provides, what provides support for my walk with God? Well, my family, my friends, probably a youth group or a church group. That'll help provide some stability or support to my faith. As I think about the canopy, the upper branches, the parts where I am growing, And that's where if I read my Bible, it's going to challenge me to grow. If I hear spiritual teaching, I'm going to learn new things. Maybe it's going to a Christian school that's going to help me, or maybe it's stepping out in faith and serving or sharing my faith with somebody else. And the last part, which I want to talk about next, is the bark, the protection. What do we have that protects us or keeps our faith from being attacked? And that would, what I thought about, what protects us is the armor of God. So I'm going to read a verse about God's armor. And this is from Ephesians 6, verses 10 and 11. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. So God's armor is basically like the bark of a tree. It's going to protect us from sin that's going to basically get under us and like cause us to struggle. It's going to protect us. And things like the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, our shoes with the gospel of peace, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit. So hopefully today, if you can take some time and go walk in the woods, you can look at some trees and see if you could identify them, but you can appreciate all the different parts of the tree and how it grows and how God provides for it, and just think about us and how we want to grow in God and how we can, what tools we have to protect us and to help us to grow. We'll see you next week. Take care.